Anyway, like I said, when things were going up, it's easy. I was like buying all the ARC funds, and I was like, man, Kathy's the best, man.
She's a genius, bro. Whatever she's talking to with God at night, it's working. Yo, what's up?
Superstar. What's that? The better beard.
Better beard. I gotta get a haircut, but I don't know if I can afford it now with the oil prices. So I'm just
YouTube Rookie of the Year.
YouTube Rookie of the Year. Trying to be the vet one day.
Yeah, man, you're on your way. You're on your way. I said it from the beginning, man. I've been saying it from the beginning.
You called it first.
What's up, everyone? In this video, I get to react to Amit's recent post where he speaks about Cathie Wood's role of her faith life in managing her ARC fund. I get the pleasure of reacting to his video with Amit live. He's gracious enough to join me. We're able to bounce some ideas off each other. Amit is a huge YouTube star, up and comer, puts out great work on a daily basis. It was an honor to have him, chat with him, and call him friend. You can find all his information and mine in the description below. Peace.
Because religion is such an interesting concept, and I'm not here to give my perspective on whether religion is good or bad or specific religions. I don't care about that. But the way religion influences your worldview is a really interesting thing to think about, especially if you're in the world of stocks and investing. Because stocks and investing and money in general is supposed to be more secular. It's not supposed to have these religious connotations to it. Because business is business, and business can be dirty, business can be good, but business is business. It is ruthless, it is cutthroat, and you don't think of like sort of the sort of feel-good nature of religion and the salvation that religion provides you when you think of something like business, because it's capitalism and it's ruthless at its core. So for ARC Innovation and for Cathie Wood to sort of be this religious figure, under the hood, which I didn't even know about because she doesn't talk about it that publicly. I found a podcast the other day of her talking about her relationship with faith, but I didn't know about it because she always is talking about economics and inflation and stuff. It's a very interesting concept, primarily because some points of this article where it's talking about her having faith in the stuff that she picks. And that's when I was just like, look, I love Cathie, love her arguments, but when someone brings that up, it gets kind of interesting because you got to analyze, all right, does this person think they're like the chosen one or something, or how are they conceptualizing it? I mean, these are interesting things to think about. They're not good or bad, but they're definitely interesting to think about, which I want to talk about today.
So here are the topics for discussion I think are good so that we highlight and go over what you said yesterday about Cathie Wood and her faith in terms of managing her fund. So I said, would this even be a topic worthy of discussion if we were 30 years ago in 1992? That's something I just wanted to highlight because I feel like maybe in the last 30 years, Christianity has been looked at a little differently. Maybe back then it was sort of the norm. Could have been more of the norm back then. So it wouldn't even have been like, oh yeah, the fund manager's Christian. Yeah, obviously. I'm thinking, I don't even remember. I was, just 7 years old back then. So,
right.
But I would assume just back then, religion was more accepted or more natural, more normal. And then you stated this word. It's a good one to get into. You said business is business. So my question is business really business? Is there any room for opinions, ethics, morals, politics, religion in business? I think that's a good question because, for example, just to expand on that, would you be a part of any stock if they were completely against something you believed in? For example, if someone was pro-war, and let's say someone was going out there now speaking, oh yeah, war is great, I'm all for it, let's go into it. Like, would you be comfortable owning that stock? Then, does ethics have a place when managing your own money or managing a fund? Does it matter if you're managing maybe a couple million, or does it matter if you're managing a couple billion? Or even in the comments I wrote to you, I said, her religion or her Christianity is a belief system. So I said, I find it no different than maybe any other religious practicer or atheist or agnostic, or even someone that would do like really meditative yoga, for example. Like they also are formed by a certain belief system that they've developed over their lifetime, So does it matter if the fund manager is Christian or Hindu or Muslim or a yoga practitioner? Because everyone sort of has their own belief system that's been developed. Even non-religious, I would assume they have a moral compass, right? So going back to the last point, everyone has their own moral compass. And even non-religious or non-Christians allow themselves to be led by it, I assume. So correct me if I'm wrong there, but we all developed our own moral compass. So would it be preferable to work without a moral compass? I don't think so, because then I would even jump in, and I think our beloved Palantir, Alex Karp and his friends, they do work with a moral compass, right? As they say that they're interested in protecting Western values, correct?
Yep.
So they do also say, oh, look, we have beliefs and we're sticking to them. So if I could just speak on Cathie's behalf as a fellow Christian, I don't think she has faith like in each individual stock or each individual trade. It's not faith in that. I think what her faith is that she's being guided by her creator, which we as Christians call Father, so God. And he's guiding her on a general level. He said, she felt the revelation that God said, go ahead, open your own fund. She felt called to do it, and she did it. I would just stress the point that it's not on a detailed manner. And I don't think in the mornings, she's waking up and saying, okay, God, help me make the most money on these certain trades and give me a signal. If it rains today, I'll sell a lot of Tesla, you know? So I just wanted to make that distinction. I think it's on a more general level than a detailed day to day.
Yeah.
You
You know, I think that makes sense. I think so. I'll get into the point of the argument I was making about business is business and like capitalism. I think the core thing here is it's not to say business doesn't have moral values. Obviously, I'm invested in Palantir because of a lot of the mission and the moral values of it. Corporate social responsibility, ESG, what Mark Benioff, Salesforce CEO, calls stakeholder capitalism. That's his big thing about not just caring about profits, but caring about all these other factors that are important. I think all that stuff is relevant and all that stuff is important. And I think that in and of itself, from a values-based system, is different than a religious-based values system. Because a religious-based value system, the way I think about it, the Venn diagram interlap between both of those is some sort of moral compass. They both just have different ways to get there. The one part, and this is the part of the video that I was trying to stress, is the religious element seems to provide a supernatural level of justification to get to the moral premise. And that's where I'm like, it's interesting to think about, right? I kept saying the word interesting because it's like, it's not good or bad. It's interesting. If your concept of the way you get to the Venn diagram of what's good or bad, and here's in the middle, here's how we're going to fix up, is morality. And you can just, so for example, like children should not be slaves. Yeah, so like if children are making, shoes and Nike and they're being paid 50 cents an hour, maybe you just objectively feel children should not be slaves. Therefore, you don't come to that conclusion. Now, if from a religious perspective, you feel children should not be slaves, it's the same outcome that you're not going to invest in Nike because you don't believe children should be slaves, whether it's religious or whether it's just meditative, intuitive, yoga, whatever it comes from. Now the question becomes, when does that religious logic go into different areas that may influence the fund or the perspective of the fund manager in a totally different way? That could potentially lead to a major upside or a major downside. I mean, maybe God did tell her to buy Tesla and it went up. Maybe he didn't tell her to buy Ford and she made a lot of money up from an opportunity cost of not putting her money there. The question becomes, what is the thought process and framework that one uses to get there? And from my perspective, if business is business, you've got to define those values. And when you bring something supernatural that no one can attest to, because it is supernatural, that's when it gets hard to define that stuff.
But so then I would almost argue that ESG stuff is not clearly defined, really. So everybody's ESG values are also sort of, oh, this is what my spirit feels. Are any lines in the sand like clearly drawn and saying, I'm sure all these different fund managers have different ESG values. Would that not be true? I'm sure everyone has their own perspective of what's right and acceptable.
That's why I never criticized Kathy in the video, because I was like, that's why it's capitalism. That's why if she wants to use God as a compass, I'm not saying she does, but if she wants to, it's her choice. She can do that. So yes, you're right? So I would say like children being slaves is a line in the sand, but I've bought Nikes before. So it's like, that's the internal contradiction of the world that's very hard to come to grips with. I personally feel horrible about that, but what other shoes do I buy in this capital? So it's like, that's the hard part. That's why it's hard to have like a definitive answer. But I do think there are some lines in the sand. I think when those lines in the sand are defined by a supernatural force, it can be harder to figure out if those are actual lines in the sand or are those supernatural force. Like, for example, I mean, if we went to the Middle East and I'm not familiar with the most Middle Eastern politics, but they have particular religious views on, I don't know, let's say pork. Pork is definitely not acceptable in Islam, eating pigs. So if you were to invest in a company that doesn't create halal-oriented food, from a religious perspective, you would feel that's bad. Now, if I'm someone who doesn't believe in halal food or doesn't believe in the religious connotation with eating anything, I would see that as just, let's make money. And then you had a vegan who's like, all of you are effed up because, so it's like, it's hard to figure that out. So,
but that's it. So let's say let's say there was a vegan fund manager and they decided not to invest in Tyson Foods and other meat products. What do you think about that? Is that okay? Is a fund manager, basically the question is, a fund manager allowed to be guided by their own belief system that they've established of what is correct?
That is okay. What Kathy's doing is okay. There's one difference. I know why the vegan fund manager isn't buying Tyson Foods. They don't like chicken. I have no idea how Kathy's faith is influencing, if it is influencing.
If it is, exactly. That's it. Well, that's a good question. Yeah, like I said, so I think that's maybe the most important distinction. I don't think it's on a stock by stock, trade by trade level. I don't think she prays in the morning for like, let me know what to buy and what to sell. I would really doubt it's that. I think it's a general.
But that's the part that's hard to figure out, because same thing with the vegan person, they don't wake up every morning, do all that stuff, but generally they're against eating meat. So we know exactly where their values line from a general level. If generally Kathy's literally, there is no generality to Kathy's logic if faith guides her choices, because we don't know what her faith is. We don't even know how Christianity, we have no idea. It's purely in the dark. That's why I just got to jump in here.
I just want to jump in to make it clear that where we are today in 2022, Judeo-Christian values have played or do play right now a huge role in our current community structure in our especially in North America. So most of the values that we're guided by, yourself included, are coming from the Judeo-Christian.
Dollar says, "In God we trust," right?
Exactly. So like, and a lot of stuff that, you know, a lot of us would agree with of what's right and what's not in terms of stealing, killing, adultery, etc. Those are biblical based principles that we've all generally accepted, you know. So
Right.
in that sense, I think Kathy's just building on that stuff, on that Judeo-Christian belief system.
That's my point as well. That's why I'm just like, so like the vegan person, I get her general perspective. Kathy's general perspective, if we both agree on Judeo-Christian ethics, then you can understand her general perspective. So that's why I'm like, there's no need to criticize anything. But the question becomes the specificities of it, which is, and this is why the quote rubbed me off the wire. She was like, before I make big moves, I pray, I wait for an answer. This is explicit, and then, you know, I make my decision. Now, your argument to me is like, well, that's like meditation. She's just she's not waking up on stocks, but she's like, before something big happens, she asks for faith and asks for sort of like guidance, just like I do before I'm about to go do something, like just hope it goes well. That in and of itself is esoteric. No one can define that. No one knows the logic behind that. We know the logic with the vegan. We don't know the logic with that. So the multi-billion-dollar question is, does that process ever influence single stock pick choices?
Yeah.
And if I was super skeptical of Kathy, and I think it does, I feel unsafe. If I'm like, oh, it's just, you know, meditation, then I have no problem, which is what I think most ARK investors do.
I want to be clear that I would also feel unsafe if she said, or if I felt that she said that it was influencing her day to day. So if I could speak in her place, what I would believe is that it's like prayer in the Christian life and probably other faith lives is a constant thing. It goes up. So we say our prayers before bed, before meals, but also driving to work. It could be she has Christian music playing and she's just quiet and she's just letting, you know, her mind go and just, you know, asking for guidance on that basis. Or even when she's at work and she's reading an article or studying rights law, she's also could be in a prayerful state, even if she's going for a walk. So, you know, from a Christian perspective, it's like it's supposed to be constant prayer in all we do. We offer up everything, even mopping the floor. You know, it's an offer. It's offered up as a prayer. So I would think she got it more from there, and over time, you know, it could have been at her previous firm for years on years, and she could say that I felt God tell me that. You know? Rarely are moves made in revelation overnight. Oh, I wake up in a cold sweat and be like, oh, I got to start a fund.
That's what I thought. That's why I was just like, that's why I'm like, I can't feel uncomfortable with it, but it is interesting given they did this profile on her for how they highlight it. I guess, like, let's say Kathy was never religious and they produced all those results, because they would. It's just numbers. Like, there's no subjectivity there. But they weren't religious. How would we compare those two people? I think that's why I think my analysis was it adds to the mystique of her, and I like that because like it makes her more larger than life. It's cool. It's branding to me at the end of the day, even though it is religious. ARK, the name itself, right? Let's say someone literally just named a fund Innovation Fund. Got the exact same returns, not religious at all, same results. You know, it's interesting to think of why she believes her religion influenced her results.
Because even if she had half her results and she was less famous, I think she would still be giving thanks to her God. In that perspective, you get it? Because
she would give thanks to her God if she was homeless as well, right?
Exactly.
She's never going to not give thanks to her God.
Exactly. So I'm to the second part. Maybe we'll get in more. Here, I have a minute 9:18.
So there's two ways to think about it. Number one, she says, before I make a big decision, I pray. And she's metaphorically comparing prayer to meditate. And I mean, when I make a big decision, I meditate as well. Now, I'm not the most religious person in the world, so I'm not like kind of asking for the answers from like a supreme being, but I don't meditate either. I kind of have my own way of getting through big decisions in my life. Like I think all of us do. It's a very subjective process. So I'm not going to criticize her for the subjective process. I don't think anyone should criticize her for the subjective process. But when she says, and in those moments I get answers, the Holy Spirit, if you want to just dwell on that, is the same thing as the Force. That's where it's a little bit confusing to me. It's like, okay, so when you get answers, when you're, you know, so for example, when she sold Palantir, you know, took a $400 million loss on $380 million, but goodness, it's a lot of money she lost for her clients on Palantir. Did you make a prayer and did you get the answer that that's what you have to do from a supernatural force? And if that's the case, that's fine. It's just me as an investor, you know, I didn't know about ARK's religious kind of connotations. And now I'm realizing, wait a second, I'm not that religious. So if I'm not that religious and you're trusting this supreme being to give you the answer to, like, for example, sell Palantir, which I'm like making an example of, but that's kind of the hypothetical scenario she's painting, which is that in those moments before I make a big decision, I will, before she says, before I make a big move.
So just clarify here, this is some stuff that we spoke about, and you sort of had that context that it was like a stock by stock trade prayer type thing, and but then you clear it up because later in the article it says it. So let's just put that into perspective. That's some of this stuff is
the thing that confused me is big move. That phrase right there. When I think of move, I think of swing trades or stuff like that. Right?
No, I think it was more of like starting the fund and like renting a building in New York and hiring 20 people and you know and maybe being. And I wanted to add to ARK, by the way, because in the Bible, ARK It comes up numerous times, and also
Yeah, I thought it was
Noah's Ark.
Noah's Ark. I thought
Noah's
that was-
exactly. So it comes up as Noah's Ark, as like the Ark of Refuge and the Ark of Salvation, and then it's the Ark of the Covenant that they brought into war, that had the tablets of Moses, and then even later in the New Testament, the Ark of the Covenant is is referenced again. So Epic 101 for you. We'll continue.
Guys like buying or selling a certain stock or entering a position, etc. I will always pray. In that situation, I would feel a little bit uncomfortable, just personally speaking. And if you don't, leave it in the comments. If you do, leave it in the comments. I'm really happy. I'm excited to know what other people think about this, but it's a little confusing. It's like, well, if you're saying that God is telling you to do this, or some religious figure is telling you to do this, and I don't believe in that same force that is telling you to do this. I just believe in research and data. And instead of or coupling with research and data, you're also using the supreme being to give you the decision making praxis to do something. That's a little confusing for me. That's a little scary for me as well, just to be honest. I wouldn't want to trust my money in something like that. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about Cathie Wood. I'm not saying she's a bad person. I am a big Cathie Wood bull. I obviously don't like that she sold Palantir, but it is a little weird for her to make that claim, and it's kind of scary to me for someone to be that larger than life and then say that they get supreme answers to what they want to do. I'm not saying that it's wrong to pray or to meditate or to make a decision. It's the question of getting the answers in those moments, because we all have different ways of getting the answers. We all have these non-natural ways of just knowing what to do. I mean, at its very core, you can call it intuition. Intuition grounds us and tells us what to do. So, if intuition is selling Palantir and buying something else, that's an intuitive mood. It's just a question of how you frame that to the people that are investing in your fund. Because when you say I get the answers when I pray, that's not implying intuition. That's implying a supernatural force that is giving you the answer via the Holy Spirit, which is what she says. So it's just an interesting thing to think about. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just interesting. And it's something I did not know about Cathie Wood for the past year. This article was my first introduction to the fact that she is a devout religious person and that her religious views impact the way she invests in companies. Last thing we're going to read right here. The former employee says Wood feels very much on a journey doing God's work. She's moved by forces beyond the asset management game. She has confidence from her craft, but she also feels like she's on the right side of, I don't know what to call it. It gives her energy and strength. The God element is more a guide of her life path. God is not telling her to buy or sell shares. Now, I mean, I hope that's the case. I hope God is not telling her how to buy or sell shares. Look, this is very interesting. I don't know if this is actually how she's when the former employee said God is not telling her how to buy and sell stocks. Obviously, it's not. They spent a lot of money on research with ARK. But the core premise of this article is that there is a world in which Cathie is praying, Cathie is getting ideas, and her decision-making logic is also coming from things that are supernatural in the big moves that she has to make. Now, those are definitely influenced by research and like all of the fancy stuff that she does to try to come to a conclusion that is all technical, but there is a level of religious connotation to it, which is just very interesting to me to like observe from this article. I didn't know that this was happening. I'm still trying to come to my thoughts on it. It's kind of weird, if I'm being honest. Just as an investor, I kind of feel weird in it. It just flat out, I'm just giving my straight thoughts. I'm not anti-religion or anything. It's just kind of weird because with business, you're not really supposed to have that much religious stuff involved in it. You're supposed to be buying and selling based upon facts and data, a little bit of intuition, but it's not supposed to be super, oriented through faith, because in business, when you have faith, a lot of stuff goes to crap, and there's like there is no faith involved. You could have faith that GameStop's going back to the moon or AMC's going to the moon, and it may just never do. You could have faith that Bitcoin will go to $1 million, and it may never do that because of external market conditions, which is what we've seen with Cathie Wood saying that the market is wrong. She's not wrong, and a lot of people are like, you can't say that because the market isn't really ever wrong. They can be wrong in individual stocks and stuff, but from the macro, if the market is saying, hey, we're just not valuing companies in this way, that means that the market is reacting to what's going on in the world.
To clarify, like I said, it's not faith in a certain stock that's going to go up, It's not right. It's faith that she's being guided in the right way, guided to do the right research, guided to hire the right employees, hire the right team, speak the right words when she goes on CNBC. It's more of a general approach. So I would just maybe offer some comfort to you that I don't think it's
divine I hope you're right on that. Right? Like, I think that was the point of the video. It's like, well, I hope you're right. Because I think the article did a good job of making it seem like kind of mysterious. That's why it's a really good article, because it really got my attention, everyone's attention. But I hope you're right. I mean, you're likely 99% right that it's about the idea of building ARK, not the individual day trades.
Yeah, exactly.
But if it is the day trades, that would be kind of scary.
I would be with you too. I would be scared as well, and I would say this lady's crazy. But I don't think so. Honestly, if she's like 97% of Christians, then she's following the main guidelines of Christianity. I don't think she claims to have a telephone to God the day trader, So so I just offer you some comfort there. And full disclosure, I own a bit of ARK. I used to own a lot more. I own just some ARQ now, and that was interesting too. That from my point of view, from my Christian lens, her purchases are not Christian enough in a sense, So I don't think
So,
she's.
so
Like,
let's get into that. What do you mean by that? What
my
exactly?
point of view, it's like a discussion we had in the past from a Christian with conservative values. What I've seen in the past, especially in the recent years, is a lot of censorship towards conservative and Christian voices. So in that sense, Twitter gets me a little annoyed. Some censorship I've seen from people I follow in the Christian conservative realm getting censored on Facebook too sort of gets me annoyed. Because when I'm invested in a company, I want to root for them, you know? I want to like love the company and go like, yeah, guys, let's go for it. But it's hard for me to root if guys are like against
my going to if you don't believe in.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, look, that's tough. It's a tough discussion because it's like, you know, that's my personal money and she's managing other people's money. So maybe her lines are a little wider, you know, and she has to close her eyes on more things.
I think that's the discussion of just like, this is, you know, I've been trying to have this discussion with myself for the past couple of years. It's like, what is the role in ethics in business? And I think
I choose business ethics.
The ethics of
business can be summarized in ethics are you know, the thing about ethics
in business. And I think when the Ross Gerber stuff came out, it was a joke because it's like, A is just incorrect facts, but B is look at the other stuff you invest in. But with Kathy, it's the same thing here. It's like she's got to make decisions, as you said. She's managing other people's money. Part of any religious text is to do good by other people in the most generic sense. So it's like, if she were to lose a lot of other people's money, that sucks. But if she gets them the money by doing something maybe a little bit unethical, by buying some stocks that are censoring people and stuff, even though they're giving great returns, it's like, it's hard. I mean, Facebook has its any company that builds their business model of ads, you could argue is completely unethical. Because the stuff that people are advertising, I mean, there's people advertising the most horrible stuff in the world. But if Facebook can find you the right audience for it, I mean, you've seen it probably with YouTube ads, not too much because you have premium. You're like, I don't want to see this stuff.
yeah.
All the advertising it could be unethical. But then you think about all the value that YouTube provides. I mean, it gave me an audience. It gives me the ability to express myself. So it's just so hard to weigh these things against each other. Which is why if you don't have these lines in the sand, then you're just stuck, you know, in bloom trying to figure it out.
And like you said before with the Nike shoes, you know, it's like it could almost never end because in reality, if myself or any Christian wanted to do it right, I think the only solution is to live under a cave.
Yeah.
At that point, you sort of got like, you know.
Because most of the people in the crypto community that are making honestly more money than a lot of people in stocks and managing crypto funds and VC investing, I mean, like a lot of those people are atheists from what I understand. Because a lot of them are Gen Z. A lot of them are into this, like, I mean, you just look at crazy NFTs. Like, they're selling sex images and NFTs. It's just like, they're just putting all this stuff out there. And crypto, to me, seems like a little bit of a rebellious backwards. But your argument is because a lot of conservative people like Bitcoin and stuff. Because
the Bitcoin. So I would say, like, me personally, I'm in terms of crypto exposure, I'm like 95% Bitcoin. So I could speak for Bitcoin. I have this book called Thank God for Bitcoin. It's like a Christian-based. It's like by like Christian authors. Robert Breedlove, he's probably the most famous one. He's on the back here.
I've heard this guy.
He speaks really philosophically. He's a fun follow on Twitter.
So what's the Christian case for Bitcoin?
Freedom. So that's why I disagree with your statement, but maybe your statement is more towards the NFTs, and I don't follow the NFTs too much. Like I said, I'm more Bitcoin. So a lot of the Bitcoiners, why I'm even feeling more drawn to them, is because they're pretty libertarian. They're preaching freedom, the freedom from the shackles of oppression. More of that. It's freedom and not being under the suppression of government control.
This whole Russia stuff that's going on, it gets me to realize just how messy everything is, how crazy it is to just like power to transition. And the fact that we've peacefully done that for 250 years, peacefully loose, but we've done it. You know, that's a win, I guess.
Something, especially like what's been going on in Canada in the past month of February with the convoy and all the strong mandates. Yeah, it's got me thinking a lot about government, the necessity for government. And I'm not for anarchy. I don't even know their full discussion because it sounds a bit out there. But then I'm seeing the other part, is what in Canada we're calling democracy, which is pushing the line of totalitarianism.
Yeah.
So it gets dangerous, and I've been thinking about it a lot. And I don't
keep that. But Bitcoin plays an interesting question there because it's like Bitcoin's not getting rid of the government, but Bitcoin's offering another route to freedom, which to me is good, objectively.
Exactly, because a lot of the power from government, which allows danger, is the control of the monetary system. Like we've seen in Canada, it's like when you cut the money, you're basically cutting the life source.
Yeah.
Canadian so to speak for the Canadian side, because I'm with it. I've seen the protest and I've been there, and these people were peaceful. There was no one ready to overthrow the government. There was no one with any racist flags. It was just like peace-loving Canadians, and the government's threatening to shut down their life source, their bank accounts. How are they going to feed their kids or pay the bills? So that gets really dangerous, and we're really far off democracy on that point when a government entity has control of the money. So Bitcoin gives the alternative to that and allows for freedom in that sense. S&P on 5 years, 82%. Kathy, I think 160%. Yeah, 160% in 5 years. So she doubled the S&P in the last 5 years. So we like to hate on Kathy based on her all-time high.
The problem is no one
performance.
bought 5 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
who's buying ARK in 20?
Yeah.
It all happened in January 2021.
2020, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but you can't blame her.
Not
for
even
that. But-
2020. No one gave a crap about ARK in 2020.
oh yeah, I was aware of them. I was aware of them.
In early
aware of
before the
them.
pandemic.
Yeah, right before the pandemic. I had gotten into ARK right before the pandemic. I would call it January 2020.
Gotcha. Because retail
I
carries ARK. So it's like retail came in the latter half of 2020. That's the problem. It's like she's got good returns. It's just for who? Most people are pissed off at her because like everyone's in the red.
Oh yeah, but so that's an interesting point. But it's like one of the earlier videos I made is like you can't judge it. You can't judge anything off its all-time high. They're mad at her from the all-time high price, and they keep saying, "Oh, ARK dropped 60%." Okay, from the all-time high. Well, who said it should have been there? Someone the Fed kept pumping liquidity in. They boosted the markets like crazy. Her stock price run up. She can't control that.
The problem is the people that you asked the question, who said it should have been there at $160? The people who bought it said it should have been there. Like those are the people that, now maybe they made a bad decision objectively. It seems like they did. I didn't make that decision. I made some other bad decisions. But those are the people that are pissed off, because like when you say who says the price should have been there, the people that bought it at 130, 140, 150, thinking it was going to 250, they determined the value proposition of ARK at that moment. Now you're right. The liquidity, all the Fed stuff, it influenced it. And those people didn't think about that when making that decision, which is why they lost a lot of money.
Lost. They didn't sell yet. Technically, if you're buying into ARK, you should have that 5-year plan. So
right.
So they shouldn't be. They should be disappointed, but they shouldn't be pissed off because technically it should be 5 years from that $150 purchase.
Right.
So listen, we'll see how Kathy plays. This is going to be an interesting story. But her RKK, the flagship, it's still a high flyer. It's all the big names. It's all the big names. So which is obviously going to induce the volatility. So
and I think the other thing is like I think we're all forgetting like once growth comes back, who has the most growth? It's ARK. So it's like when it's time for it to run again, the question is, does Roku get back to like 400? It doesn't have that much level of run in it. It is going to have a run. It's just a question of how much of a run, and we'll see when that happens.
Yeah, we'll see how long it takes. And man, thinking about those prices now, it's like
it's insane,
even Zillow and Teladoc, and I was guilty of even buying some at those times. And the thing is, I never experienced a bubble and a crash. I think it's safe to say this is like a type of bubble, but
absolutely. Did you look at this?
I thought it was going to be faster. Sorry, I thought it was going to be faster. A crash. The crash took like months.
Oh yeah.
I thought the crash was going to happen every night, but even the rise took weeks and months. So it was just slower. So it sort of lulls you to sleep, and you're like, oh, okay, I'll buy some Zillow, I'll buy some Teladoc. It's still going up. It's been going, and then you're still in the green. At points, I was in the green with those. It's like, fuck, I'm a genius, Teladoc's in the green, Zillow's in the green, Kathy's the best, everything's in the green. And then like even the decline is like, okay, a little up, a little down, and then it just never really goes back up. So that's one note I noticed, that like this crash took longer than I expected.
Yeah, and we may have some where to go. I mean, 30% is where we get into like a recession, bear market crash. We're only down like 12, 13. So we'll see how bad it gets.
And I'll leave you on this last point. One thing, I've been saying it for a couple months now to my buddies. I said, compare it to February 2020. There's really no reason that we should be 20% higher than February 2020.
Absolutely.
Again, because we're comparing it to the crazy highs that we had. But forget that. If someone was in a coma or fell asleep for 2 years and he woke up and he was 20% higher than he was in February of 2020, the guy would be like, oh shit, that's amazing. We're doing great. But us, that we experienced the 200% increase and then like the crash, we're like, oh, things are crazy. But if we still stay 10, 20% higher than February 2020 levels, then I think things still make sense.
Because after Feb 2020, it shouldn't have gone as an insane of a run as it did. But the liquidity, that's why if you bought anything in 2020, you made money. If you sold, like me. So.
Well, if you sold, because
right, you sold, right.
It depends your timeline. I'm not interested in selling. I try to convince myself that I'm a long-term investor, right? So whether it goes up or down, I'm not selling.
The show goes on. This is my home.
Like I said, when things were going up, it's easy. I was like buying all the ARK funds, and I was like, man, Kathy's the best, man.
This is a genius, bro. Whatever she's talking to with God at night, it's working.
All of that. I was buying print. She had the Israeli one. I was buying all the funds. It was sick. Anyways, I'll let you go, bro. We'll talk soon, all right? Thanks so much.
All right,
peace, bro. Ciao.